Good afternoon and welcome to Guided Meditations and More. My name is Ade Richardson and this is the Guided Meditations and More video podcast, which I've been hosting, I think since April. This page started off to be a place where I'd offer uh, daily guided meditations for those that needed it through with the stressful period that we're going through with the COVID virus, the pandemic. And, at some point I thought, I got tired of seeing myself and thought it'd be nice to have people come and have conversations. And it's really been something that I've enjoyed. And today, I have a good friend of mine that I haven't seen for a while. So I'm really excited to have him here, Ben Chertoff. And Ben is a photographer. First of all, hello, Ben.
Hey,
Welcome.
hey, thank you for having me.
So I'm going to read your bio. Ben Chertoff is a New York City-based journalist, photographer, and videographer. His writings have appeared in national-style magazines, such as Men's Journal, Popular Mechanics, and Private Air. And he is a regular contributor to Thinknum Media. He has produced video, podcast content for AOLswitch.com, Engadget.com, and PopularMechanics.com. As a photographer, he has covered international humanitarian crises such as Hurricane Katrina and Popular Mechanics, for Popular Mechanics, and the United States military response to the earthquake in Haiti for PopularMechanics.com. Ben is currently available for editorial and commercial work in New York City. His Instagram is Benjamatic Automatic. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. Probably needs some updating now that I've heard it live, but half of those outlets are now defunct. But
Okay.
yeah, they know that is definitely all correct. That is all correct.
And your website is?
It's my name, so it's benjaminchertoff.com.
Okay. And I'll put, I think the link, well, I'll add the link to your website in the description. So, I've been thinking about the idea of having a podcast, video podcast, centering around art and artists and how they contribute to the world and just wanted to get their perspective because I've gotten perspectives from spiritual teachers, professors, healers, a variety of, on a variety of topics and people. And the first person that came to mind was you, because when I think of you, you're in like, you're really in it, like I see your photography almost daily. I'm not sure how often you get out there, but you're like really in New York. You're capturing, what's going on in the city, like the rawness of it. That's what I really appreciate about your photography. There's a real emotional um, impact. It really resonates. At least for me. And so I thought it would be interesting to have you come on and talk a little bit about this, and we'll see where the conversation goes. So I guess the first thing is, how did you get started? What like inspired you to pick up a camera, and or where did you get started in general with your artistic expression?
It's funny to even think of myself under the umbrella of artist as like, there's the whole like imposter syndrome with that because it just seems so such a label to give yourself. But yeah, I mean, it's what it is art. Making stuff is has really become such a part of my life. And I'm really grateful for that. But my dad gave me my first camera, a little Fisher Price 110 millimeter camera. Um, and I think since then I've always been wandering around with a camera. Pretty early on, I was, my dad's really into photography on definitely a an enthusiast level, and he kind of instilled in me the basics of that, and also just this weird obsession with always having a camera on me. And so, I started shooting film with a real SLR when I was pretty young. Um, and he used to take me up to Lime Rock Racetrack, and we'd watch the car races, and then I'd go around shooting photos of the cars afterwards. And then occasionally he'd find one and blow it up really big. And it's just really, there's a gratification, there's a satisfaction that comes out of making something like that. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and that continued. I kind of deviated from visual arts for a little bit after high school, and went into writing and reporting, and ended up working at some print magazines back in the days when those existed as a thing.
Yeah.
Um, and but I was always like, I always had this jealousy about the, not jealousy, but just the sense of, I wanted to be in it in the visual sense. Photographers get to be there, writers get to write about it from wherever. But if you want to be in the story, the photographers are there, and there's the presence about that I really like. And also just making images. So I was always jealous of the photographers who get to go out there and see the stuff firsthand. And so somewhere in there, as we segued into online stuff, I started to pick up a camera again, for more of a, capital P photography standpoint, and started shooting photos, um, more, from kind of a journalistic standpoint. And I've just now started, and just now being like the past decade, not decade, but the past 5 years maybe, I've started to kind of move out of a journalistic like out of a professional type of photography, and just enjoying it for myself, which is really getting back to the original joy of photography. But I think in that sense, it's like it becomes more of an art unto itself.
Yeah. And how did your you say your father had something to do with
Mhm.
your getting becoming interested in photography, and did he encourage it? Did he give space for your creative free? Did you feel like you were able to express freely, into, as a child, or was your parents the type to say, no, you got to color within the lines, type of parent?
No, I mean, he was definitely, he was always giving me pointers about the technical side of the photography, but I think from the artistic side, I could do whatever I wanted. Um, a lot of that was me, and I think this is the true with any sort of artist path, is like, you start off trying to imitate. And so a lot of this was imitating my dad, imitating stuff that I'd seen. But yeah, I can't remember any time when I was told this is wrong or do it this way instead. It was definitely like whatever I want to do, I could do. We were having some conversations over this weekend actually with my dad about, when so my parents divorced when I was young, so I got to spend the weekends with my dad, and he slept later than toddlers do. So, in the morning, he had these like really amazing sets of blocks, like wooden blocks that were kind of the institutional level type. So they were the ones that you'd find in schools, and he bought me this big set, and I would spend every morning just kind of building all these creations out of blocks. And it's that, I don't know, there's something about just kind of being in the thing for yourself, that is really beautiful. And I get
Yeah.
that same satisfaction out of photography, out of like video editing too. It's like these weird, it's kind of like building something with Legos or blocks, and you're not quite sure where it's going to go, and then it's this thing.
Well, that's beautiful, because I think sometimes what could happen is the child will come with something and the parent will say, well, you maybe should do it this way or that way. And it kind of, at times, it can kill
Hmm.
that creative, freedom, to that playfulness that's
Hmm.
important to, especially with art, because you are, as you said, you're embarking on this path of uncertainty.
Hmm.
So you don't know what's going to come next, and and if you were taught that it has to be this way, then you're not really going to express freely. So that's why I asked that question.
Funny enough, like lately, my dad has been saying, "No, you have to do it this way. How can you?" Like a lot of we get into this argument all the time about handheld photography versus using tripods or a monopod. And he's always telling me how I would never do that without a monopod. You want to borrow a monopod here, and it's just like I come from a very spur of the moment, more instinctual than preconceived. I mean, there are times when I want to slow down and do something with intention, but most of my street photography is very spur of the moment. So the idea of having tripod is just doesn't work in my practice. So I'm just like, that's dad. I'm doing something different here.
Yeah, and I could, looking at the photos, I couldn't imagine you tell a couple that's there kissing. Hold on one second.
Exactly, exactly. Wait, can you go back and do that again? Yeah.
So, well, let's talk about the what inspired you to, how did you get into the street photography, and what do you feel, has it changed the way that you think about people and the city in general, being in there,
Hmm.
on the street, and in some places that some may not really want to go into at times,
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I mean, there are a couple of questions in there and a couple of things that I'm thinking about. In terms of getting into street photography as opposed, it's, I'm a journalist by nature, and I'm looking for stories. And it's really like when there's no, I'm not on assignment, I'm just walking around. It's like, what's the story here? And I'm really, we're so lucky to be in a city like New York where there is, this year maybe slightly an exception in that there aren't as many people on the street, although there is still a story with everyone. But like there's just this beautiful nonstop symphony of life in the city. And so there's always, just like walking to the subway, it's almost impossible to do that without noticing something kind of bizarre or funny or, sometimes tragic and deeply upsetting, but there's life everywhere. And I really appreciate that. The more that I photograph it and the more that I'm out there kind of trying to be present in the moment, um, the more I see. Um, but and also the other thing is like and this is going maybe a little bit towards activism and the social justice types of things, but I like the more I'm out there with my camera and the more I'm in my neighborhood up in the Bronx, which really has not been gentrified at all. Um, I get so much more love for the city every day I'm out there with a camera, and for the neighborhoods I'm in, and for the groups I'm around, um, and finding this. It's weird because, like, as a photographer, I'm trying to not be part of the scene and trying to be as candid as possible with everything and kind of like the quiet, silent observer. But at the same time, I just like the more I'm out there, the more I just want to be a part of it and be in it. And I'm able to like I'm in a neighborhood that is almost entirely Spanish. And my Spanish language personally is I'm terrible at speaking Spanish, but you know, you, I love being a part of it, and shopping at all the local stores instead of ordering from online places, and kind of like, I don't know, just being in the city it's given me this deep appreciation for that, and also for the people who are out there. I see the same. There's a I'm actually a little concerned because I haven't seen one of the local neighborhood guys, Patrick, who kind of hangs out at the end 2 blocks down, on like the first major road. He's out there all the time, and he's an artist, and he sits and he draws, and he's in a wheelchair, and he asks me sometimes for photos so that he can draw them, and like I see him all, and I haven't seen him in a month or so, and I'm what happened to him? Where is he? Um, I don't think I necessarily would have had that connection with him had I not seen him and noticed him and kind of been present on the street, and and had wanted to kind of expand those connections, which with a camera, just it's you kind of do it just because you're in there, you're looking at it and documenting, or at least I am. And it's made me, I don't know, it just made me feel much more a part of the city, which is really a gift.
Yeah. And would you say that, I mean, it sounds like you're, really in there and getting to know the people, and rather than like kind of put in a lot of space between you and the subject. But is there, I mean, does that become emotionally draining at times, or is there something that you do to sort of find that equilibrium so that you don't kind of wear yourself thin?
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely. I've had some heartbreaking conversations with people. And also, I try to not. This is kind of ancillary to this point, but like I really try not to capitalize on misfortune. And so I have some, kind of basic rules that I've set for myself about who I'll photograph and under what circumstances. And I think in some ways that insulates me a little bit from focusing on misfortune, but also just being out there. I see it's been a difficult couple of years as the homeless population has increased. It seems exponentially in the city. I don't have the actual statistics on it, but I just so many people are in such the wealth gap and the housing gap and just the resource gap in the city has increased so much. It's impossible to not just go out on the street and walk and not feel that. Especially the closer you are to the people who are out there. Um, it's it can be draining. It can also be incredibly fulfilling and beautiful to be out there. Part of my practice is just going for walks. I don't really. It's not like I have an idea that I'm going to take this many photographs and it's going to be on this corner and it's going to be. Sometimes I'll go out at a specific time of day because I know the light will be nice, but really it's just let me go for a walk, and I'll walk for an hour or two, and sometimes there's great photographs, sometimes I've just gone for a walk, but either way it's I get something out of it.
And how are people in the neighborhood starting to get to know you? Like, oh, there's the photographer guy.
It's taken many years for that. I you know especially up here, oftentimes I present as a white guy with a camera, and so there can be a lot of, and understandably a lot of, suspicion and concern about somebody walking around like that. I mean, I walk around with older, more, my part of my process is shooting analog. I like the tactile sense of it. I like the process of developing and working with a physical medium. But so there is like this sense of like, okay, it's not like some super advanced digital camera. Um, for the most part, you can see that like, okay, I'm not. I might probably not police, but still, there's a. I. It took me. There's a group. There are some groups that I know not to photograph because I know what they're doing, and that's their thing, and it's fine with me. Who am I to judge anyone out there? And there's a group at the end of my block where after a couple of years of just walking back and forth with a camera, one of the guys, who I later befriended and learned his name, asked to pose for a photograph, and of course I'm happy to take his photograph, and and then he said, he always thought you were a federal agent walking back and forth with your camera. It's like, well, I no offense, but I'd be a pretty bad federal agent if I had my camera out the whole time and I was so obvious about it. But yeah, so then I met them, and met the guys who hang out doing their business on the street, and it's nice. It's a feeling, I called up my dad right after that, and I was just like, Dad, I met the drug dealer at the end of my street. Now I'm a part of this neighborhood. And like, I don't know. It's yeah, it takes a little bit. There's a little bit of a dance to do in terms of understanding you're respecting the boundaries of the community, um, but also establishing some level of trust where like I'm not I really I don't set out with the intention of taking anything exploitative. I really try to be aware of that. And I'm sure that I've I've failed in that many times, in ways that I don't quite understand yet. Um, so it's a growth process. I'm learning to trust. I'm learning to trust the neighborhood, to trust my instincts, and to gain the trust of the people out there who I'm photographing.
And so have you had any, oh, I won't say really negative responses, but or just reactions that you would prefer not to have
Oh,
had?
sure. Sure. That's such a, that's part of street photography is learning to find your comfort level with the negative reactions, because it doesn't matter, what you're doing or what level of trust you're trying to establish. There is going to be somebody who is pissed off that you're out there with a camera. In the same way, there's going to be somebody in the city of like 9 million people. There's somebody who's going to be pissed off, for whatever you're doing and, out there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I've had people, I've had a camera ripped off of me in the subway, from somebody who was unhappy that I'd snapped a
Wow.
photo. Yeah. Yeah. That took a little bit to recover from. I've had, plenty of people yell at me, and, people like there's a bodega at the, close to the train that I get on, and it's just got this beautiful kind of old grungy, sign that a lot of the bodegas around here have replaced their original, lighting with this very bright LED lighting, which is eye-catching, but it photographs terribly. So this has just this very classic old, fluorescent backlit transparent sign, and it casts this beautiful light at night. And I was out right as the real lockdown for the pandemic began, and I was out with a medium format camera, so it's clearly like a bigger rig. It's impossible to shoot on the fly. I think I had a tripod with me at the time, and I was just trying to capture these empty streets, because I live very close to a very busy thoroughfare in the Bronx, and it was empty. You could walk down the middle, and I set up outside this bodega, which I photographed countless times, through the 5 years I've lived here. And um, and one of the owners came out and was like, "What are you doing? What are you, why are you photographing my place?" And was really, came in with this immediate, hostile, interaction, and I've learned to, and this is not through any, virtue, but more through like learning my own reactions to things, and you know don't come up with the like the self-righteous, like I have the right to photograph here, because that was always my initial instinct, and that never ends well. But I said, listen, I live in the neighborhood, and I photograph, some places around here, and I was like, here, look, this is what I do, and I showed him my Instagram, which he didn't want to see at first, and then he saw it, and he was just like, oh yeah, do whatever you want, take any photos you want.
Yeah.
And then we chatted for a while, and it's through some interactions like that where I've kind of learned, not learned, but where I've kind of met people in my neighborhood and established some of these relationships. They start off hostily, and then it's like, no, 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 man,
Hmm.
just trying to make art here.
Yeah, cool. Let's talk a little bit about the technical side of things for people that are, interested in that stuff.
Sure.
Talk us through like a day in the life of Ben, in terms of when you get up and you're getting your gear together, what you're using, what you're thinking
Hmm.
about, and, as best as you can.
Sure. Um, for the most, so I've realized that as I shoot more and carry cameras around, and especially working in film, that my camera choice is somewhat seasonal. And in the during the summertime and the warmer months, I'm almost always it's just one 35 millimeter rangefinder camera. These days I'm shooting on a Leica, an M4P, so it's a fully manual camera, no metering, no batteries, which I like because I've had many instances with cameras with some electronics in it, and like you have that perfect shot, you get one microsecond chance to take it, and if it's too cold out and the batteries don't have quite enough voltage, the camera doesn't fire, and it's so frustrating.
So you
So
you have a handheld, your own light meter with you that
I
you're
do,
using?
yeah. I'll carry a light meter. For the most part, shooting color film. After you kind of figure out what your settings are going to be for a cloudy day, for a sunny day, for nighttime. For street stuff, it can be pretty easy to. I mean, not easy, but like after you shoot for a while, you know what your settings are going to be for the most part. If I have time to slow down and hand meter, absolutely, I'd much rather do that. But there's such latitude with color film. Um, you can be 2, 3 stops off and still get a really nice image out of it, which is another reason why I like shooting film, because it takes some of the guesswork out.
Yeah. And why do you prefer film to the digital medium?
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, just from a technical standpoint, there's this huge dynamic range that you have with color film. Where with digital, you're lucky to get like 6 or 7 stops of range, but with film, it's sometimes 11 and 12. This huge range of exposure latitude, which as a street photographer is really nice because I can capture, as long as I'm exposing for the shadows, I can pretty much bring back a lot of highlight. Um, but what I really enjoy is there's an imperfection to it that that I that really brings the beauty out. If I want to make a nice photo of something that is technically perfect, my phone is about as, without bringing out like a big SLR, that's going to be the camera that I'd use. Just in terms of resolution and all that. But there's no real, there's nothing there. It's this dead thing, a digital photo. Whereas film, to me at least, and I, there's certainly ways to breathe life into digital photography, but from a street photography perspective, just having, I don't know, there's something wonderful and unpredictable and organic about it, and also just it's a surprise when I pull a roll of film out of the developing tank, and oh, this one worked or this one didn't, or I don't remember taking that frame. And it's or yeah, I remember taking that and I forgot that that was on there. It's this either in that, just the process of developing and kind of working with a media like this has its own satisfaction beyond even taking an image that is a usable image. Just the process is something I enjoy.
Yeah, that's great. So you're enjoying the process and the journey.
Hmm.
And so, in terms of, you said you prefer film because there's these imperfections, and
Hmm.
and I think it's great, especially when you're filming New York,
Hmm.
and what draws you to your images? Is it just something intuition, or to take what tells you, okay, I'm gonna stop and I need to take this photo?
That's a good. So there are certain triggers that I have that I will, I just make a habit of shooting. People kissing, always, which is about as classic as it gets with street photography. So there's nothing really new and groundbreaking there. But that is like it's impossible to pass that up. Balloons are always, there's always a story there. The things people carry can tell such a story just by seeing how they're carrying it, what, the guy walking down the street dressed well with a bouquet of flowers. There is a story there. Something is going on. He's going on, maybe the first date, maybe it's
How about the while you're what I think I'll do now, I think I'm going to show some of your photos
okay.
while we're talking about this, because if I were in the audience, if I were listening,
Hmm.
I'd want to see.
I don't know if I
um,
have any good flower photos from recently, but I think I have some. I don't even know if I posted that, some balloon photos that I've taken in the past couple of days.
okay, well
Um,
we're actually at the photo
oh,
of,
cool.
well, we're going to get a little bit more into activism, but maybe
Hmm.
you could talk us through as I go through the photos.
Sure, sure. This was during the summer at a memorial in Jackie Robinson Park in Harlem. It was a vigil for George Floyd. So this is, I'm assuming, June, or no, this is probably, yeah, early June. I reposted it in October, but it was I you know I started going out and protesting um very, like, 2 days after, I think it was the second day of protests in New York City, the first really big day of protests. And
Mm.
it was impossible not to, just based on what we'd all seen. It was just this accumulation of frustration and anger. And I think that week it had been Ahmaud Arbery had been shot, and then, like, days later it was George Floyd who had been killed. And so I started going out daily and photographing, just bringing my camera with me. I
Yeah.
didn't set out to photograph the movement at all. I went out, in fact, with the intention of protesting
Mm.
and doing what I felt, and what I continue to feel as a civic duty to be out there and to raise a voice for those who have none. And My camera I took just because it's become such a tool for how I see the world and for keeping me present where I am.
Yeah.
Um, and I also have the sense of it's like I'm walking out without my arm if I don't have a camera with me. Um, but yeah, so I started photographing it as really just a personal kind of travel log of protest, if that makes any sense. And it's turned out, it's kind of grown into a bigger thing since then. But yeah, and I just try to find, there, I leave the who, what, when, where, and why to the journalists who are out there covering this professionally.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who I see all the time out there who are shooting the stories for Getty and for the New York Times. And that's really not what I want to do with my camera. I'm trying to find the moments that I notice, which are, some of the quieter ones, like this kid there you're looking at with the Trump Pence out now. That was a couple of days ago in Washington Square Park, and there's this little girl with her parents nearby, and she's got this massive sign, and is, like, trying to find space to hoist it up.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about that is both emblematic of the burden that this next generation is going to carry, and also kind of hopeful that they're starting so young.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this photo. Let's click through some more. Let me know if there's any in particular you would like me to stop at. But here's a night photo. I just like the night work that you do.
Yeah, and that's like we were talking about how my choice of gear can be seasonal. Now that it's dark so often, I'm kind of slipping back, not slipping back, but moving back and kind of reawakening some of the progress, my process of shooting at night, which I really enjoy doing. And this is right by my neighborhood. There is the Kingsbridge Armory, which is this massive army armory that has sat largely vacant, although it's still used by the National Guard or the New York State Guard. I'm not sure exactly what the official terms are. But it's right next to the Jerome Avenue 4 train. And at night, there's this, I don't know, the train just throws up this beautiful projection of light on this massive brick building. And, in that kind of like late fall Halloween time, it just, there's a vibe there that I was definitely vibing on.
Yeah, and you can certainly, like, it does feel like it has life, that if it was a digital picture, a digital photo, it like you could almost feel with your photography like the vibration coming off of the photo. It's there, it's living.
Mhm.
That's one of the things I enjoy about it. Let's see. Let me know if there's anything in particular. I'm trying to figure out how to.
How to get forward in this?
Yeah. Uh, let's see.
I
Maybe
think if you click my name, it might
oh yeah. Let's try
yeah,
that.
see if it goes back to the
There we go.
yeah, there we are.
Okay.
See if that lets you scroll down.
Oh, I like this one.
Yeah, that was in it was just this weird moment in Washington Square Park again, where there's this guy with this um remote controlled four-wheeler with a Chucky doll on it. This is again in the lead up to Halloween. And it's just really he's scaring the poop out of all these people in Washington Square Park with this, scary looking Chucky doll that comes driving up, super fast out of nowhere. And then this little girl just kind of walks up fearlessly to it, smiling and talking to this little Chucky doll, and was just totally fascinated. And there's this, I don't know, there's just this innocence about it that I found. I love the juxtaposition there. Um,
Yeah, yeah. The children just bring out yeah, as you said, this innocence. They haven't
mhm,
been conditioned like we are, and have been. And she's just seeing this interesting, doll, it
mhm,
seems, and she's curious.
mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, I love that.
let's see. I'm gonna click on your name again. All right. What did I do?
Oh
Oh,
no.
okay. Now I see. Um, all right. Oh, I like this one too.
Yeah, I wish I had been shooting color, but that was black and white film that I had loaded, and these three guys were there with these matching blue, blue, light blue, um, button-up shirts and blue jeans, and it's just I love kind of the synchronicity or the coincidence of matching things, pairs and triplets that you see on the street.
Yeah.
And these guys just matched perfectly, and it's just kind of goofy too, with they're clearly probably not from New York natively,
Yeah.
which is always for a native New Yorker something of an inside joke. And then this is so there's this group called well, actually I think it's just the Stonewall protests, which is one of the the real seminal moments or the beginning of Pride in New York City, and I think probably the world, starting at the Stonewall Bar, which then turned into this massive, the Stonewall riots 50 years ago, and was one of the real touchstones of the beginning of open gay pride. And so there is a Stonewall Black Lives Matter protest that every Thursday starts at the Stonewall Inn on I want to say Christopher, it's Sheridan Square off of 7th Ave. and marches up from that. And it's this, Black Trans Lives Matter movement. And it's this incredibly joyous, beautiful group that is, so much of it is just stopping and having a dance party in the middle of an intersection. And then behind is this, and it's not in this photo, but it's in some others from the series, but you have this line of just like these vicious, angry looking cops who are following just the most amazing, peaceful demonstration of love and brotherhood, and just like this really beautiful thing that is then so suspicious to these cops who are following it.
Yeah.
And the juxtaposition there is, it certainly says something. And these are the, again, I live in a very Spanish neighborhood, and every single night during the summer, not just during COVID times, but obviously during COVID times, groups of old men sitting outside playing dominoes late into the night.
Yeah.
And there's just, I don't know, there's just this nice life, and it's something that I never experienced. I've lived in a lot of places of the city. I grew up most of the time in Brooklyn Heights, and then I've lived all over Manhattan. But this is a part of the culture I hadn't experienced before, and it's really beautiful. They're not sitting inside watching TV. It's people and families outside in person, being present with each other playing this game. And
Yeah.
I wish I spoke enough, and this is definitely, now that we're talking about it, reminds me that I need to work on my Spanish, because I would love to learn that game and, like, be a part of it to a certain extent as an outsider, but still kind of learn what it's like.
Yeah, I love this photo because it's like, as you said, they're not inside.
Hmm.
They're not watching. If you look at CNN, or if you look at these news, the media, or social media, it's like the world is ending basically, and these guys are out there, playing dominoes and
And it could
enjoying
be
themselves.
any decade. This could have been, I look at this now and I'm kind of trying to see it with a bit of a fresh eye set, but like this could be 1940s in New York. It could be
Exactly.
any time, or 1940s Havana. But it's, this is 2020 New York City. And there is something beautiful about this cultural tradition that still persists,
Yeah.
and still exists here. And this is coming off the Brooklyn Bridge. This was this was the day after, or maybe 2 or 3 days after, the Breonna Taylor ruling was handed down last month in Louisville. And I was with a group of protesters, and we held vigil in the middle of the Brooklyn Bridge. And so this is at the end. The way protests have kind of evolved in New York City is that there is a group of bike protesters, who are on bikes, and they go up ahead and help block the intersection so the main march can move through safely. And in this case, this is the line of bikes that is blocking the entrance to the Brooklyn Bridge, so that the group of 100 or 150 protesters who are on the bridge can safely hold vigil there in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's been, the violence against protests has slowly been increasing over the summer. First it came from the cops, and then now it's coming more from people with different political views, and just frustrated drivers. But I'd been in a couple of instances where cars have tried to push through a protest violently, and that's what I was worried was about to happen here. But in that instance, we were able to talk to the driver and kind of convince him that, nah, maybe he should turn around. And he did, and everyone thanked him, and it kind of de-escalated, which was nice. And
Right.
this is the second day of protest. This is like May 30th in the city, at Barclays Center, right as the real George Floyd protests, this was the night when it really became a citywide thing. And this is outside Barclays Center, and there is Spider-Man there. And Spider-Man has become a regular appearance at most of the large protests throughout the city. I don't know if it's the same one because it seems like we have an Uptown Spider-Man. There's definitely a Brooklyn Spider-Man. Different iterations of the costume. But yeah, this was Spider-Man there, and then on the right are the undercover cops who, shortly after this photo was taken, they disbanded that unit because they were so violent. And
Wow.
that day here was definitely no exception. They were those specific cops in that photo were later caught on video. Definitely behaving violently towards protesters.
Okay, so and if you want to see more of Ben's photography, you can go to his Instagram, Benjamatic Automatic. Is that
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay?
it is.
And the link will be here. So are you like with? I'm glad we did this interview today with the election coming up tomorrow. For some reason, it feels fit in to do this today, and I think that artists, photographers, people that are out there doing this type of work, just being creative and interacting with, getting another perspective, other than what we're seeing only on the news
Mm-hmm.
and other outlets, but you being in there, I think it's important and it's uplifting. And how do you feel about, do you feel hopeful for the future and
I've gone back and forth on this. Shortly after during the summer, I had this sense of real hope that maybe things were going to change. I still think it's a possibility. I am worried about the next couple of weeks and months. And I've talked to a lot of photojournalist friends of mine, and we're all concerned because the feeling on the ground has definitely shifted, and it's moved from what was this very hopeful demonstration and this very this real feeling of solidarity in purpose and the sense of being really supported by the city, to uh, to a feeling that it's not necessarily like that anymore. The cops have aligned very strongly with the Republican side and the GOP side, specifically Trump. There's a very anti social justice bent from them. And they have been getting more directly violent towards protests, and so it's scary. I have journalist friends who just 2 days ago were arrested covering a protest, and at a certain point, it becomes clear that this isn't just it's no accident. They're sending a message, and so that is frightening. On the other hand, being out there, and as we were just, I saw that photo from Barclays. There is I am hopeful that this next generation, that the people who are out there protesting now, that there might actually be some real and lasting change to come out of this. If nothing else, um, the political environment has certainly galvanized a strong group of progressive thinking. There's the lack of empathy from our leadership, I think, has forced us all to really develop more empathy ourselves. And so I'm hoping that might be the silver lining from this crazy 4 years, and I hope that it is just a crazy 4 years.
yeah, same here,
Mm.
and let's see, if is there anything, we're coming up on the hour mark, so Is there anything that you felt like we hadn't talked about that you wanted to maybe, anything you wanted to talk about?
Oh, it's a good question. And I mean, I can, I think I just really want to go back to the, being so lucky to be able to go out and take photos and to have that as a thing that I can fall back on. And especially in these times, and with the next couple of days, I as you were talking about that and hope for the next couple of days, I was thinking to myself, well, regardless, I will be out there and I can go out and photograph it, and that gives me personally just some agency in, like, I can do something, even if it doesn't have an immediate effect. I freelance, so I'm in between projects right now, and I have some days that I'm working this week, but for the most part, like, I could easily fall into the trap of sitting at home, just obsessively pressing refresh on the New York Times, and that's not going to help anything, especially not me. Um, so being able to have this thing, this process, to be able to go out and make something, even if it's never going anywhere, even if it's just taking a walk with some intent. I'm grateful for that, and I think it's something that all of us can kind of pick up and try, whether it's photography or painting or writing or just kind of being in the world with our phones down and our eyes open.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, um, just being out there and we want to, when you think about being of service, a lot of times people think, well, okay, feeding the homeless or doing this
Mhm.
or doing that. But sometimes service, in my opinion, is also doing something that you enjoy doing. Like when you're doing something that you're passionate about, that you enjoy doing, like you do, and you're out there, people, it's going to affect people
Mhm.
around you, because your joy is going to affect, rub off onto other people, rather than for in front of the TV in this
Mhm.
kind of fearful state, and understandably so. I'm there,
Mhm.
on and off sometimes, but that is going to create, that's contagious as well.
Right, right.
So
I think we do resonate among other people, which is, coming out of the pandemic, maybe going back into some more lockdowns. That's having that personal being in the world in some sort of way, safely distanced, if so. But yeah, we resonate off of each other, and making that joy for ourselves. I think you're right. Definitely is. Our moods and the energy we give off are contagious.
So thank you for joining us, everyone. This was Ben Chertoff, photographer, activist, and all around good person and friend of mine. And I'm glad that you came and joined for this video podcast. Like, one of the things I love about having these conversations is with each person, I'm inspired. I learned something, and it just, fills me up as well. So this video, I'm going to make do some editing, like intro, exit, and I'll send you a copy and post it to some places. So just some closing announcement. Uh, Hi, everyone. This is Guided Meditations and More. My name is Ade Richardson, and I was sitting down with Ben Chertoff. And the topic is photography, activism, and spirituality. When I think of spirituality, I think that, it kind of, I don't think anything's really outside of that. If you have any questions for Ben, you can, send them below this video. Also, I'll post his links here in the video. And if you have any comments or questions for me, you can send them to my inbox or below this video as well. So thanks everyone for joining. Also, I have another podcast. You will find a poster for that on the page. That's coming up this Friday. It's Yoga and Wellness, and that's at 4 p.m. And Thursday at 7:30 a.m., I'll be offering a guided meditation. So, and on Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Ben. Good to see you.
Thank you, Ade. This was great. Thank you.